Well, folks, I would say good morning, but I'm not sure that there's a lot good going on in Frankfort right now. What we're going to talk about is the level of frustration that I have in trying to pass an extraordinarily important piece of legislation, one that impacts every single Kentuckian. In 2009, Ukrainian hackers stole $400,000 from the Bullitt County Fiscal Court bank account because the county had weak cybersecurity controls. In 2007, Kentucky county clerks couldn't issue driver's license, renew vehicle registrations, or perform other functions after their computers were infected with malware because they failed to install antivirus software. In 2012, the Finance Cabinet inadvertently posted on its public website names, social security numbers, home phone numbers, birth dates of a couple hundred current and former state employees. It remained on the website for 2 days. Folks, these are just some of the real threats that we know and real incidents that have occurred as a result of a lack of cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is not only a real threat, it is the primary public safety concern of the digital era. It is simply a matter of time before we see more massive data breaches. And if you need to look for evidence, look no further than another small rural southern state in the form of South Carolina, where the tax returns, both individual and corporate, were lost to a hacker for almost every citizen of South Carolina. What could have been prevented with a $12,000 fix has cost the state of South Carolina $30 million in running. The question is not if, but when and how big. We have a bill that can help make the security and personal private information of every Kentuckian more safe. We have a bill that demands that when government is unable to provide that security, they simply be obliged to inform their people. House Bill 5 incentivizes government to take some extra steps to protect citizens' personal and private information, and requires them to notify the public if a breach occurs. Is there any issue more foundational, the proper relationship between people and their government, than an obligation for the people to be made aware when their government is unable to protect them? That is not political. That ought not to be controversial. That is common sense. It is a no-brainer. This common sense bill passed the House 99-1. It had 79 co-sponsors. All but a handful of the members of the Republican House caucus signed on not just to support, but to co-sponsor this bill. It has had broad bipartisan support. It passed the House more than a month ago, and it's languishing in the Senate, with no excuse left beyond politics. But I'll get back to that in a moment. With a third of the session left, the question is, why has a bill that impacted every Kentuckian, that is relevant to the digital era, not been passed? And admittedly, I'm growing impatient. Despite trying to respect the process, a process that doesn't deliver efficiently basic protections to the people of government isn't one that ought to be respected. And in my view, what we need in Kentucky is a little more focus on outcome and a little less focus on process. This bill impacts every single Kentuckian, and that can't be said about many bills that come in front of the legislative session. But when we look and we see the amount of data that government collects on each and every citizen, I think it paints a very compelling picture that we need to move with urgency and to move now. I would point out that Kentucky is one of 4 states in the entire country that doesn't have a cybersecurity breach notification law. 95% of the population of the United States lives in states where they are protected. Kentucky is not among them. And in this era, not only is that irresponsible, it's disgraceful. We've built composites here that I think will paint a pretty clear picture of what we're talking about in Kentucky. And from these composites, you're likely to recognize a family member or a neighbor. Let's talk about Jane. Jane was born and raised in Kentucky. She is a single mother who went back to school after losing her job at the factory to become a nurse. Here's just a small sample of the information that would be collected on Jane over the course of her lifetime. When her children were born, birth certificates were generated. When they went to public school, social security numbers, dates of birth, and sensitive health information were collected. Consider that any of us who are parents who have children in the public school system, there is a digital record of their allergies and who can lawfully pick them up from school. When Jane turned 16, she got her driver's license and she gave her social security number and date of birth. When she lost her job, she enrolled her children in Medicaid, which collected their social security numbers, bank statements, and life insurance policies. She had a health scare while pregnant and lab tests were conducted. The state collected those private health records. When she went back to school to get her nursing degree, the university collected her social security number, date of birth, and other sensitive data. When she applied for a job at the university's medical center, she again gave her social security number, her date of birth, her driver's license number, her cell phone number, her bank account, and other information. Before she could start her job as a nurse, she had to be tested for tuberculosis and other diseases. Government has those results. And she had to become certified, providing the Board of Nursing with her social security number and other relevant information. She pays state income taxes each year and gives out her social security number and bank information so she can have her return directly deposited in her account. Every summer, she takes her kids to state parks, which means the state parks have a record of her credit card receipt. Folks, this impacts every Kentuckian. Let me provide for you another composite. Let's talk about Joe this time. Joe is a retired police officer who has started a small business, and like me, he's a sportsman. He enjoys hunting and fishing. Here's a sample of the private information that would be collected on Joe. When he went to the police academy, he had to provide his social security number, date of birth, and medical history, and undergo a physical, all of which has been recorded. When he got hired as a rookie cop, he had to give his blood type, undergo a credit check, and provide his bank account number for direct deposits. When he got promoted, folks, he would have to submit a DNA swab. Upon requirement, he started a small business. When he pays his corporate taxes, he provides his business identification numbers, his social security number, and banking information. This is one that particularly hit home with me and the hundreds of thousands of Kentuckians every year who get a hunting and fishing license. When you renew your hunting and fishing license, each year you're providing the state not only your social security number and your date of birth, but your height, your weight, your eye color, and your hair color, and if you pay with a credit card, the state has that record. Folks, as the people of Kentucky look at these two composites, these aren't composites, these are a mirror. They are a mirror of those who are all impacted by the degree to which government collects information on our people. Certainly information this private. Certainly information that goes to the heart of what matters in terms of privacy and good government ought to be protected. And when they can't sufficiently be protected, the public ought to be made aware so they can defend themselves. As usual, it's my approach to try to do big things in my position as state auditor, and to do big things, you have to build a broad coalition. I'm extraordinarily proud of the 30 member organizations representing the diversity and interest of all areas in Kentucky who have signed on. We've got folks who represent retirees and state employees, organizations that represent those that will be regulated by this process, both the League of Cities and KACO, large private sector organizations, the chambers of commerce of both of Kentucky, Northern Kentucky, Louisville. It really runs the gamut of folks who are committed to making sure that government is more accountable. It is the right thing to do, which brings us to the issue. If you can't build a broad bipartisan coalition and still get things done in Kentucky, it begs the question of why. Now, the chief obstructionist who has held this bill up has admitted that politics has played a major factor. Folks, when you can't get a bill passed through the Senate, when you can't even get an assurance of a bill passed by the Senate that had 99 votes in the House and all but 8 members of the other party's caucus committed to signing on to it as a co-sponsor, it is a demonstration of a bigger problem in this town. Obstruction for obstruction's sake is why good people hate politics. Let me be crystal clear. Obstruction for its own sake is the reason why good people hate politics. This isn't a partisan bill. This isn't the Adam Edelen for governor bill. I'd like to let Senator Thayer know that there aren't many people in this building who wouldn't want to be governor. But when we start deciding how important legislation that impacts every single Kentuckian is going to be moved based on the political ambitions or the assumed political ambitions of those who are sponsoring it, we wouldn't be able to pass anything in this town. which is why we are where we are. I would point out to you that in my first year as state auditor, working with Senate President David Williams, keep in mind who I'm referencing here, working with Senate President David Williams, we were able to pass a bill that allowed for a common sense relationship between the Auditor's Office and the Ethics Commission. Senator Williams and the Republican majority, knowing that I hadn't been a supporter of his, and frankly, as Governor Beshear's Chief of Staff had done battle with him regularly, still did the right thing. And as a result, we got outstanding legislation that assures those of us in government who have a watchdog responsibility have the ability to work together. The fact that we are where we are and that we can't get this bill passed because Senator Thayer's focus on politics makes me long for the bipartisan days of one David Williams. Frankfort doesn't need to be driven by obstruction. Frankfort needs to be driven by doing the right thing. We have put together the hard work of building consensus. We have brought people together of very diverse backgrounds around a common belief that government ought to protect its citizens, and when it cannot, it ought to inform the citizens. We built a coalition that reflects the diversity of opinion and perspective in this state behind this very good bill. I would point out that the most conservative organization, free market organization in Kentucky is the Bluegrass Institute. They have said in their own words that passing this bill is a no-brainer. Folks, if we are going to lose progress to politics in Kentucky, I think we ought to be clear-eyed enough to explain to the people of Kentucky that we are not worthy of the leadership positions that we have been entrusted with. Let's move forward. Let's engage the public in doing the right thing. Let's provide Senate Republican leadership the opportunity to move forward an extraordinarily important bill, which I think not only marks our emergence and relevance in the 21st, but goes a long way to making sure that government is directly accountable to the people and is focused on protecting them. Thank you very much.
Adam, are you possibly causing yourself some problems here by calling out Senator Thayer? I talked to President Stivers today, and he said it's comical to think that holding a press conference complaint is going to do you any good.
Well, we have tried literally. This has been an absolute. We have exhausted diplomacy here, Joe. And I'm really glad you asked that question because we have engaged with Senate leadership in general, and Senator Thayer specifically for several months now. It was our original idea that we start this bill in the Senate in the vein of producing a truly bipartisan effort. On Senator Thayer's personal recommendation, he said, I strongly recommend that this bill start in the House. So that's where we started it. We had a number of conversations with Chairman Joe Bowen, who was enthusiastic about it, even expressing his enthusiasm for this bill at the Kentucky Association of Counties Legislative Conference last fall. Joe, when we have asked repeatedly for a real response of why this bill's not moving, despite Commissioner Comer's egg bill moving, despite some other bills moving, why isn't a common sense bill moving forward in Kentucky? We have gotten crickets as a response. So again, trying to do the right thing, at the end of last week, I sent a letter to both Senator Thayer and Chairman Bowen requesting a hearing and wanting to know when that hearing would be. And we asked to know it by the end of business on Monday. Now listen, the snowstorm happened. I'm certainly about making accommodations. Joe, it is now Thursday, and we haven't heard anything. The notion that I'm supposed to go quietly and not fight for this extraordinarily important piece of legislation that impacts every Kentuckian, I think would be an abdication of my leadership role. It is deeply frustrating, and you can have a relationship with people based on mutual communication. They have chosen not to communicate for us over the last number of days. So we've decided to take this public as the only opportunity I think we have to pass this extraordinary important piece of legislation.
To make sure I'm connecting the dots correctly, you said that obstruction for politics' sake is unacceptable, and you said this is not an Adam Edelen for governor bill. Do you think that Damon Thayer is blocking this because he wants to prevent you this political win for your presumed run for governor?
Listen, this isn't a political win for me. This is a win for the people of Kentucky who entrust their personal data with a government that ought to be able to protect them and certainly ought to be obliged to let them know when they were unable. I never introduced the element of politics to this once. It's why we built a broad bipartisan coalition. If this were the Adam Edelen for Governor bill, the notion that we would have almost 40 Republican co-sponsors for it would be rather extraordinary. I don't think that's the case. I don't think Sal Santoro, although I would welcome his endorsement, was signing on to make Adam Edelen governor. I think they were signing on because this is a bill that's time who's come. And the introduction of the political element to this didn't occur for me. It came from Senator Thayer and Chairman Bowen on Ryan Alessi's camera.
But you believe that they are trying to, that's their motivation.
You know, I try not to ever question anybody's motives because it makes it difficult to do business. But Joe, the facts speak for themselves. I mean, what other conclusion am I to come to? We're in the waning days of this session. This bill passed more than 30 days ago from the House with the most broad level of bipartisan support we've got for any major piece of legislation this fall. And I'm here because I'm deeply frustrated. And I think the people of Kentucky are going to be deeply frustrated when they find that such a common sense piece of legislation is hung up for what appears to be only political considerations.
Can you think of any other reason besides politics this will be held up in the Senate?
You know, unfortunately, because of the lack of communication, because of the lack of commitment and working together that we're seeing from the Senate, those concerns haven't been communicated. I've heard whispers that it's an unfunded mandate, yet that's ironic because the very organizations that represent the governments that would be regulated are on this board. And I would also point out that at the end of the day, you've got to decide with whom your sympathy lies. Does it lie with those who are the tax collectors, or does it lie with the taxpayers? I'm unapologetically on the side of the taxpayers. And if someone has the infrastructure in place to send you a tax bill, they already have the infrastructure in place to let you know that they've lost your personal and private information.
What's your next move?
My next move is to take this to the people of Kentucky and continue to agitate to only get a hearing. You know, if there are people who have significant disagreements of opinion and who have concerns about this bill, my door remains, as it has since I was elected, open. But we can't have a clean vetting of issues that have the magnitude of impact like this bill without clear lines of communication. And I hope this will get somebody's attention. I know it will get the people of Kentucky's.
I want to be sure when you say chief obstructionist, you're talking about Senator Thayer.
I am.
You brought up David Williams and saying you actually had better success with him. How do you compare Damon Thayer to David Williams as far as his role right now in the Senate?
I'm really concerned, and I'll tell you why, because as you remember, Joe, you covered it. Damon Thayer was a terrific partner for the auditor's office in working to pass what Mr. Blyles over here called the most important good government initiative we passed in 25 years. We have had an excellent working relationship, but the fact of the matter is something has changed. It's certainly not my approach to doing big things. It's certainly not my approach to being bipartisan in the way we try to accomplish those big things. No, sir, I don't think the change has happened on my watch, in my shop.
What are the most troubling things that, in your mind, that Senator Thayer has said concerning this?
Well, I'm concerned that there have been the most troubling issue we've heard from Senator Thayer is that there's been no commitment to a hearing. I wouldn't be here if we had at least had a public commitment to give this bill a fair hearing in the state Senate. Further, when he's been directly asked what are the reasons why this has been held up, he is the one who has mentioned politics as a consideration, not me. For those who think I should have chosen another path, I would simply say on behalf of the people of Kentucky, what would you have me do?
So what are the chances now?
I haven't any idea. This extraordinarily important bipartisan legislation that literally enjoys the support of every organization we've solicited and involves every Kentucky in the entire Commonwealth now comes down to the limbs of the Senate leadership.
How surprising is this?
I'm shocked.
Considering that House Bill 1 last year went through so much wrangling in the Senate.
It is shocking because the conversations we had about House Bill 1, which were absolutely It was a complicated and highly technical bill that involved almost every layer of government in Kentucky. And the differences about that were ideological, right? Senator Thayer had a difference of opinion than I did. But the fact is, we were able to work together to get this done. And he was a very good partner. And there was much communication. So we had an element of trust, which was an important part of us being able to get that done. And I can't think of anything more important than involving folks like Senator Thayer on the front end. The reason why we started this bill in the House was because he told us to. And now we can't even get a commitment that this bill is going to be heard. And if the issue that Senator Thayer and other Republicans in the caucus have is with me, I will gladly step back. We have an organization that speaks for itself. We have a fact pattern that no reasonable person can dispute. If the issue is me, I'm happy to do whatever I need to do to get this bill passed. But we're not having those conversations. We can't even get a damn hearing. And the notion that I was elected to come to Frankfort and sit like some kind of lapdog and wait for things to happen is just foreign to who I am. I was elected to be a watchdog, and that's the job I'm going to do.
What are the other 3 states that don't offer these cyber protections?
Well, unbelievably, even Mississippi has one of these cyber protections, and I'm famous for hitting on Mississippi. They have it. It's Alabama, South Dakota, and New Mexico. Not the final 4 that we would want to be in. So this isn't about Damon Thayer, this isn't about Adam Edelen, this isn't about Republican, this isn't about Democrat, this is about doing what's right for the people of Kentucky with a bill that literally impacts every single one of them. We've got to get the politics of personality out. We have got to quit using process as an excuse for obstructing outcome. Anybody else?
I don't think that diplomacy is over.
Come on over here, Dick.
I think I have an appointment at 12:20 with Senator Thayer, one at 1 o'clock with Senator Webb, and a couple other ones that I think that I'm going to get to meet with. And I feel like I've got pretty good background because last term I worked with Senator Stivers and Thayer and Hoover to ameliorate some issues on the voter using the email for voting to improve that, and we did. So I'm going to them as, hey, I worked with you before, and we can work on this again. And this is really important. It's not a partisan issue. I'm with Common Cause. I've been their state chair for 26 years, and we don't endorse candidates. Not endorsing Adam. It's a good government issue. It's just very simple, and we want to work for that. And I've been coming down here for 26 years, and it's extremely important to me. And nobody pays me. Common Cause doesn't pay me, and nobody else. And it's just something that's so important to the state, and it just befuddles me that this is not going anywhere. And I commend the auditor and his staff for really working on this and getting this started.
Thanks, Richard. The Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you, leadership.
Thank you.